According to Lord Sidious himself, Grandmaster Yoda was perhaps the most powerful and dangerous Jedi that had ever lived. In fact, he is the only Jedi that Sidious ever referred to as a true rival to his power, the only genuine threat to his plans. The rest of the Jedi were simply playthings, but Grandmaster Yoda, with his centuries of wisdom, knowledge, and power, made him a genuine threat. This is why it is all the more curious why, following Order 66 in their grand duel in the Senate, that Darth Sidious never followed up on the whereabouts of Yoda, the greatest threat to his empire before its rise. And yet, Darth Sidious felt no need to pursue Grandmaster Yoda, no need to follow up on the whereabouts of the greatest threat to his galactic empire. But why exactly was this? Why was it that Darth Sidious seemed to not even think about Yoda following the rise of the Empire? Why was Sidious so content with letting the old Jedi go? Well, today, students of the Force, we have a definitive answer from a canon source, as we will be reading directly from the novel Stories of the Jedi and Sith. As finally, from the very mouth and mind of Darth Sidious himself, we have an explanation why he never felt the need to follow up on Yoda, why he never felt the need to hunt him down following Order 66, and why he felt the powers of the Grand Master were now obsolete. Darth Sidious catches himself on the rail of the repulsor pod, gasping for breath. He can barely breathe, energy surging through him as he pulls himself slowly up. He turns to look for Master Yoda, laughing again. All he sees, though, is the Jedi's ugly brown cloak drifting down like discarded trash. The clone soldiers come, and they do not find a body. Nearly 20 years later, now on the throne on high in the spire of his isolation tower on the Death Star Mark II, the Sith Lord, the Emperor, thinks about the old Jedi, their unfinished duel. It does not haunt him. He has no regrets that might cause a haunting whatsoever. He won. He so obviously won. Grandmaster Yoda slunk away to hide. Sidious rose to the apex of the galaxy. Everyone calls him Emperor now. Everybody fears him. Merely look at any corner of his galaxy and see evidence that he won that duel. But all the same, he'd like to end Master Yoda himself. Not with his own two hands, of course, but with the shock of a red saber. A compelling side note here. Darth Sidious never actually favored using a lightsaber whatsoever. In fact, he considered the weapon to be obsolete next to his grand powers in the Force itself. But this line is compelling because Darth Sidious has the urge to prove himself superior to the Jedi and Grandmaster Yoda in every way possible. Even if it means lowering himself to using a lightsaber, he still has the urge to prove himself superior to the Jedi with their own weapon. And it's compelling that nearly 20 years later, he still feels that urge to best Grandmaster Yoda blade to blade. Moving on. Collect Yoda's little lightsaber once the green creature is dead, and set it with the others. With all the trophies in the Imperial Palace, the lightsaber will look like a toy beside the rest. Useless. Silly. There will be no one left called Master but himself. He has looked, set the Inquisitor's program to seek Yoda's hiding place, made certain the Hunter probes know his name and his specs. Once or twice, the Emperor considered various arcane Sith rituals that might instigate some sort of echo or thread of the Force to lead him to Yoda's location. But the Emperor has never performed them. Why bother? Why waste his own power on a mere irritation? Wherever Yoda is, his power is so diminished he can be no threat to the Empire. But sometimes, when Palpatine sinks into the Force, drinking it up like the endless source of power it is, his feelings drift along to a distant thread of anger, sparks of hate, and in a far-flung place, he senses a fleeting moment of familiarity. It never amounts to anything if he bothers locating it, and over the years he has spent with the dark side, his feelings diffusing throughout and sucking up power, the very easy touch of Yoda's name has become meditative. I defeated you. I chased you away and took everything that was yours. The things you stood for are now ashes. You remain, and as long as you do, I will always win. But the rest of the time, Palpatine prefers to see Yoda again, just long enough to watch him die. He sits on his throne and stares out the massive viewport. He has sent the fleet away. Below the battle station hangs Endor, milky clouds just in his field of vision. Within a few short weeks, the jaws of this trap will snap closed around the Rebel Alliance. His apprentice will break a final time, and Vader's son will take his place. There will be no rebirth of the Jedi, The Emperor smiles, and then he laughs. He hopes after all that Yoda is alive, that the old Grand Master Yoda will know when these final remnants of the Republic and the Jedi are crushed, that he will sense it, feel the pain of it. Yes, Vader is coming, approaching the space dock to speak to his master about the search for his son, and he feels the Emperor's satisfaction pouring through the dark side itself. We can glean a lot of information from this small passage. First, we learn that Darth Sidious did actually search for Yoda, but not out of a sense for anybody to destroy him, if not himself personally. This would in fact mark the only Jedi that Sidious wanted to best and kill personally, as he was quite content with having every other Jedi either killed by the Inquisitors or Vader himself if they proved to be powerful. But Yoda was special. Yoda was the opposite side of the coin. The other thing we learn is that Darth Sidious is quite content with Yoda being alive. In fact, he even finds peace in the thought. The idea that Yoda will have to perceive the very galaxy in its brand new transformed state, a galaxy ruled solely by the Sith. If anything, Darth Sidious seems almost glad that Yoda is alive, and in this final moment, in a final moment where he believes he will turn the Skywalker sun forever, he hopes within his very soul that the Grand Master is alive. But we also learn something else extremely interesting. That being that despite Yoda hiding on Dagobah for 2 decades, the Emperor can sense something. There is something that bothers him every time he reaches out through the dark side itself, something that tells him that Yoda is still alive. Meaning that despite living on Dagobah and hiding his presence in the Force for 2 decades, Yoda's presence is so powerful that the Emperor knows he is still out there somewhere. But again, he views him and perceives him as no threat. He wants him to suffer as much as possible, live with the knowledge of his ultimate failure. But anyway, my friends and fellow acolytes of the Force, what are your thoughts on this? And what are your thoughts on us finally getting a full explanation directly from the mind and mouth of Sidious himself? Are you satisfied with the reasoning why Darth Sidious never hunted Grandmaster Yoda following Order 66? As always, my friends and acolytes in the Force, may the Force be with you, and I hope that you're having a great day.